Rebecca, I am super, super excited to have you on the show. It's not every day that I meet someone dabbling in the quantum realm, so I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Rebecca Krauthamer is a technologist and entrepreneur specializing in quantum computing and cybersecurity. She is the co-founder and CEO of QSecure, recognized globally for its post-quantum cryptography solutions. Named to Forbes 30 under 30 in science, she also serves on the World Economic Forum's Global Futures Council on quantum computing. A Stanford graduate in symbolic systems, she founded QSecure to support diverse talent entering the quantum field and continues to champion ethical, responsible tech. Rebecca, let's get started. First and foremost, how did you get started with this path? I mean, quantum computing is a really esoteric industry, and it almost seems futuristic to many. What inspired you to get to kind of build your career along this path?
I started out in AI before LLMs were the thing, and uh, the AI is often for a lot of people this gateway drug to quantum computing.
Mm,
It sort of shares the math, and they're kind of close cousins in a way. So that was what it was for me. I was working in AI, machine learning, and I was kind of like this hired gun for startups where if they wanted to do something with machine learning or natural language processing or any of these things, I was the person they called to build train models to do
right.
the whatever you want them to do. And you kind of get to this point as a practitioner where you're envisioning this bright world of, if I could build the perfect model, it could predict, like the stock market and
Mm,
all the sci-fi vision. But the reality of it when you're working in it is you're pretty constrained by like computing power and
right.
how many variables you can combine at once uh, to get to those like predictive problems. So
Yeah.
to make the long story short, that was sort of the gateway to quantum computing in that quantum is it won't solve all our problems. It's
Right.
not a bigger, better, faster computer, but some of these problems where you're really trying to figure out the optimal answer to something, but
Mm,
you just don't have enough computing power to look through all the possibilities at once. That some of those problems are ones that are fundamentally unsolvable in a regular computing world, but like beautifully open in a quantum computing world in theory. And
right.
so that
Right.
was that was my entrance into that world. And
Mm,
we were we were working in quantum computing, building algorithms to run on these early quantum computers. And from that side of things, we started to think about the flip side because quantum computing is so powerful. It can do all these great, amazing things. It will do all these great, amazing things. And then the flip side of any powerful technology is what's the threat side? And so we started thinking about early before a lot of people were talking about it, the
right.
threat of quantum computers to encryption.
R- Very interesting. So you started off talking about AI, and my question to you is, for the longest time we thought, hey, don't, if once the emergence of AI comes to fruition, don't worry, we're going to keep it in this sandbox. It's going to have these constraints, and you won't have to worry about things running amok. And what I found really interesting about the first NLP was that it was kind of released into the wild. It wasn't kind of
Mhm.
brought up in this lab. It was thrown in the wild, and all the refinement and iterations are coming from regular end users,
Yeah.
someone like myself. And I'm wondering, I guess I'm also touching upon the potential economic landscape for quantum computers. And I know you mentioned that, it's not going to necessarily replace classical computers, but in certain capacities, like brute force structures, which we'll talk about cryptography in just a moment, it's going to be extremely effective in dealing with some of the issues that we have, with some of the protection mechanisms we have today. It's going to be extremely effective at actually breaking them down. But my question to you is, do you predict in the next 15 to 20 years that quantum computers will just be in everyone's house and it'll be something that will just be just down to the regular consumer on day one, or is this something that's going to be held by, you know high level industries for many, many years, and then maybe we're lucky one day to have access to them?
It's an awesome question. If you think back to when the early days of computers, even like the 1960s, these things took up rooms, right? Or yeah, sometimes buildings,
Hmm.
regular computers. And if you've never seen, like if anyone listening has never actually seen what a quantum computer looks like, I encourage you to Google it because there are different ways to build them, but some of them look like these like beautiful steampunk chandeliers,
Yeah.
and it's just like I hope that I have one in my house someday soon. It'd be a beautiful thing to look at.
Right.
The thing that I really love about quantum computing development that we did not see with regular computers is they're already on the cloud. You can access them from
Right.
anywhere in the world.
Does
You can
IBM have something along those lines?
exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
you can go
right, right.
program right now an IBM quantum computer on the cloud. And so it kind of it's sort of democratized in a way that regular
Mm,
computing was not initially. And so I'm not sure everyone will have a big beautiful quantum chandelier on their desk in the next 10 years, but everyone will be able to access one.
right. But I guess in that case, it's kind of centralized, where that double-edged sword of, the great power potential can be used for good and be used for bad. It'll
Yeah.
probably be constrained within when you're funneling yourself through IBM structure. And yeah, the reason why I asked that question is I think one of the biggest problems to a quantum computer is getting close to that 0 Kelvin, where you can actually play with those qubits and do calculations. Do you
Uh-huh.
see that being something that you can just buy like at the palm of your hand and walk around with something? Or is it going to be something where you have this cloud and you're walking around with just an interface?
So one of the most interesting things about quantum computers is there's a number of ways to build it. So like you're saying, the one that looks like a really really cool chandelier, you do need to harness these particles at almost absolute zero to be able to control them and manipulate them.
Hmm.
There's also a lot of organizations building quantum computers, some that you don't need to get that cold, some that they claim to be room temperature. So
Hmm.
I know a lot of people are looking at that. What is the future of portable quantum computer look like? And I think there's a world of possibility there.
Interesting. And, it's like companies like yourself that see really significant and important problems to be solved in the future and jump on the bandwagon early, get that edge in the market. And I absolutely love the idea of worrying today about a quantum cryptographic world. And
Mm.
one of the most common questions being asked when it comes to cryptography is, hey, when quantum computers reach that, I would call it quantum supremacy, and I guess we'll get to that in a moment, but once that day does come to fruition, are we going to have and experience issues around stuff like decentralized platforms, such as like cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin, for example? I believe Bitcoin uses a SHA-256 bit encryption. And explain to our listeners why what sort of threat quantum computers will pose to something like Bitcoin, and what would have to be done to avoid this issue. And most interestingly, even if certain processes are patched, like, you move on to there's a hard fork, you move on to another encryption structure for Bitcoin, and everything is safe. But what about all that data that lingers on the internet that got this false feeling of security because it was encrypted? And now you can have like just data sets being imported in quantum computing and deciphering that data and then leveraging that data for all sorts of malicious activity. So I'm asking you a three-pronged question here, but it's kind of like all connected, and I'm really curious on your thoughts.
Totally. So the rumors are true. Blockchain is at risk. That is because anytime data is traveling between points, whether it's me talking to you, whether it's I'm sending an email, receiving a text message, browsing the internet, yeah, sending crypto. The thing that keeps that transaction secure against any kind of prying eyes that are not supposed to see inside, that's all based on one single math problem that is virtually impossible for a regular computer to reverse engineer.
Hmm.
Turns out a sufficiently powerful quantum computer can break down that math problem pretty simply. And so that is that is why the blockchain, in addition to essentially all of our digital communications, are under threat from a quantum computer.
Right.
Now, you need a quantum computer that has about 4,000 error-corrected qubits to get to that place where you can slice through it, and we're not there yet. But why is everybody talking about it? Why does everybody care? It's specifically because of this problem of harvest now, decrypt later, and it's this idea that bad actors are harvesting and stockpiling these data transmission, these
Mm.
encrypted, secure data transmissions, and they're sitting on them
That's
for when they
fascinating.
have yeah, right, for when they have that
Wow.
cryptographically relevant quantum computer. And so and that's how digital communications work. They go out and get routed
Right.
over these networks, and anyone could kind of grab what's going that transmission. But that's the purpose of encryption. Make it so that if someone does grab it, they can't read it. Well,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, and I like to think of security today as just a basic, like a cost benefit analysis. Like nothing is really secure on the internet. It's more of of a how much do you want this data, and there's so much more effort you need to get this data that it's worth more. Your time is worth more than the value that's hidden behind that encryption itself. And to make this point here, it's like think of like at a basic level, you think of just having like 8 digits, right? And to brute force and try every single combination till you get that right digit, can take you. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it can take you 20 years. So now the question becomes, is what's behind that wall worth 20 years of your time? And the answer is it's not. And I think fundamentally it's that concept that makes us feel really comfortable having our bank account behind that wall and having our most sensitive information behind that wall. It's just a basic inconvenience that there's no one in the world who's willing to invest that much energy to try to get my information. And help us understand, I know this is a little technical, but help us understand why something like a quantum computer won't have this brute force process of to crack to crack the code. As a classical computer, you'd have to like forcefully go through every pattern until you hit a match. And why quantum computers don't function that way?
So the way that I really that I've since the
I
beginning
saw
found
you sigh like this is a
no,
really complicated question, and I have to
no,
make this
no.
really absorbable.
It's my favorite question, because I think one of the most important things I think in deep tech is how do we make concepts accessible to everybody, and how do we not gatekeep how these things work? And so it's one of the most fun challenges to try to explain something simply,
Mm,
uh, and the way that I always like to explain it is if you imagine that you as a person you're trying to solve a maze, and you enter into this maze, and you hit your first T. You have to choose, right? I go right, I go left. Choose, go left. You hit the next T. Got to choose again. I go right. And it's this iterative process of finding your way through that maze. All right. Quantum computer enters a maze. Hits its first T. Right and left at the same time.
mm,
Next T. Right and left at the same time. And the magic of what a quantum computer can do that a regular computer cannot is if you have a cleverly enough designed algorithm, it can look simultaneously at all of these different paths through the maze and chop
mm,
off every path that is not the most optimal path. And
mm.
so what you're left with at the end is that optimal path through the maze.
That's a great explanation. So I guess my next question is, philosophically, it sounds like you're describing more of a Copenhagen approach to quantum mechanics. I would love to know, uh, what is Rebecca's philosophical interpretation of QM? Which one does she subscribe to?
Well, the math is based on that sort of many worlds
Mm,
interpretation, right?
right.
If you've seen sort of I think some of the Marvel movies might be the bane of a lot of quantum scientists' existence. However, sometimes a useful analogy where they go
Right.
into there's a universe where you ate chicken noodle soup for dinner, and there's a universe in which you ate
Right.
tomato soup for dinner, and every time the decision is made, it branches.
Correct.
So what I think is the universe is awesome and mysterious, and the math of the thing is really based on that idea that these multiple states, these multiple paths through the maze can all exist not in conflict with each other in a quantum computer's memory, and it can hold all these to be true at once
Hmm.
and compute as though they were. And so
Hmm.
how
Fascinating.
that plays out in reality, who's to say?
Yeah. We really do need the theory of everything because there's so much we can do with all this stuff. Now, I want to segue into a little more of a philosophical angle here because it's like, I asked you a question, what's your philosophical interpretation? But the truth is, it has really no implication, as you mentioned, on the mathematics. The mathematics are the mathematics, and our little feeble minds are desperate to try to kind of create a connection from our experience of reality to what we're experiencing in the math. And the truth is, the universe owes us no explanation, right? It's quantum mechanics is the way it is, and if it's bizarre to us, it's because we have a bizarre view of the world and we have a bizarre expectation of the world. It's not necessarily that there's something wrong with the QM. And it's like it's mentioned the theory of everything. We would have to reconcile why things change down there different to how they are up here, right? Truthfully, it should be all one beautiful, parsimonious, elegant formula to explain how everything works. Now, my question to you is, have you ever grappled with theory of everything? Have you ever grappled with why quantum mechanics is so bizarre? And what direction do you think the broader physics will go in the next decade or so?
There are uh, a lot more PhD students who could provide some really elegant answers to that question. What I Because I don't know, and I'm sort of in a place where I'm comfortable not knowing. But
Mhm.
I talked to I mean, this is something that comes up all the time, and there's also there's this idea that quantum computers will help us understand the
Hmm.
fundamental nature of things. And Richard Feynman, kind of the one of the forefathers of quantum computing, quantum physics, he said, if you want to understand the nature, you have to build a computer that simulates that nature, and that's a quantum computer, basically. So
Hmm.
I think that's what a lot of people are really excited for, is that quantum computers will really help us understand uh, the universe more at a quantum level and otherwise. The other thing is we may just not have the capacity to understand, and we might just be destined to see parts and pieces and live that life of wonder, not knowing.
Hmm. Yeah, and I promise I'm going to talk more about Rebecca's startup and challenges in just a moment. But I do have one more question. So, we were talking about the funkiness and the strangeness that engulfs the quantum world, and there are these concepts. I think Einstein first termed it as like spooky action across a distance, and there's a handful of them. Uh, but the truth is, it's people can easily conflate magic with beautiful science and beautiful phenomenon
Definitely.
around quantum mechanics. Can you explain to our listeners like how quantum computing leverages something like quantum tunneling? And what is quantum tunneling? I know you mentioned that when you and I speak and are having this conversation, there's information being transferred across the internet. And that makes sense, right? In order for information to go from me to you, it has to travel the distance between us. Explain to us how a quantum computer functions fundamentally different.
Oh man. So um a quantum computer itself takes advantage of the the basic principles of quantum physics. One of them being superposition, that idea of two things being true at the same time.
Mm.
Um, Interference, that idea of if you can chop off the wrong the wrong answers, then you end up with the right one.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's, I think what you're really talking about is this idea of quantum communications, um, entanglement,
Yes.
and having these things essentially connected in a quantum physical way that in effect effectively allows communication to happen instantaneously. So if you
Hmm.
change something here, this one responds immediately, and um, and it's a very cool principle in quantum communications. It's often used uh, for something called quantum key distribution, which is you
Hmm.
transmit like a,
Handshake.
cryptography is like a lock and key. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
So you transmit that key in a in a way that leverages that entanglement, and it's
And you can't have like bad actors kind of like snooping around waiting for that information so they can steal it along the way.
exactly.
Wow. Very cool stuff. Yes. And now I want to learn more about your story as a founder. So coming to reality here, or coming to the day to day, the relatable stuff, as a founder of your company, dealing with something so complex and esoteric and awesome, how do you juggle, like, what were some of the challenges you faced bringing this concept to life?
A lot of a lot of people are surprised and sometimes disappointed to learn that the my company QSecure, we do not actually do anything quantum. We are a defense against
Oh,
the dark arts. We're yeah, so and that's like that's one of the biggest sort of
you're creating encryptions. So when quantum computers do come to fruition, it's just the classical concept, but it still has a guardrail against QM systems.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So you don't actually need a
Ah.
quantum computer to fight a quantum computer, which is good, right? Because of that harvest now decrypt later, we actually need to put these defenses in place right now so that when that encrypted data is harvested and stockpiled, quantum computer can't do anything with it. And so that's what we do.
Mm.
We do the classical defense that is provably secure against quantum computing type attacks and otherwise. And and so that's what I get excited about because it's really as we move forward into a progressively more and more digital and intelligent
Mm.
world, whether it's AI, whether it's quantum AI, the foundation of staying secure, like the I think of it like the bottom of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of digital needs is data security and keeping that data
Yes.
private, whether it's blockchain or
Especially as we head into a decentralized world where there is no recourse and there is no fallback measure when your information is compromised. Yeah, we're moving into an area where, cybersecurity analysts and experts are becoming more valuable than programmers themselves.
Mhm. Totally.
Yeah,
It's a new era for cybersecurity. It's like a it used to be this dark corner, and now it's the thing that like boards are talking about, and
right,
there's Netflix shows about it, and it's fun because I mean we think about self defense in a regular world, in a physical world, and we know don't go down a dark alley at night, but we don't think as much about self defense in a digital world, and that's what
right,
cybersecurity is.
right. And it's one of those things where, unfortunately, it's really hard to understand in a proactive, preemptive model. And a lot of us who do take security seriously, unfortunately, have learned the hard way from having a reactive structure where they've experienced what the headache and stress and agony that comes with getting compromised, and then they learn. Yeah, and so moving this back to crypto for a second, what would Bitcoin or blockchain have to do to protect itself from the quantum age?
So the good news is, and I think this is where most people this is my favorite part of the job is most people know at this point that there's a threat, but most people also don't know that there's a solution.
Hmm.
And so that solution is just it's new algorithms. It's new math.
Hmm.
It's it's replacing or layering on top those old algorithms that are vulnerable and just bop, saying, hey, let's use these new ones. This is going to keep your data secure
So,
in
so
a
you're
way that
saying Bitcoin eventually will have to have like a hard fork where they'll have to say, we're going to move to a completely different chain and that's that.
there are certain, so we've worked a lot with exchanges and digital wallet companies to protect some of those transactions. And the elegant thing about what we do is we say, hey, it's time to centralize your control of encryption. You basically lay the security blanket over your communications and you're good. You have those new encryption algorithms and you can control them. When it comes to the blockchain itself, the most likely course of action is that you probably do have to adopt into the blockchain, into the infrastructure itself, those new algorithms.
If you had carte blanche to fix whatever you can in the world, what would be the first thing you would say, hey, this is the most important thing we need to worry about?
Well, I've kind of dedicated my life at this. So I've gone through all the stages. I've gone through AI to quantum computing and working in quantum algorithms, and that got me to the place that I am today. And that's the cybersecurity side, the defense against everything that's coming. And so for me, it's everybody getting control over their data and really understanding that 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 is us. That is our net worth. That is what is most precious. And same for organizations. Organizations have the obligation to protect the data that we trust them with. Government. So that's for me. That's the one thing I would empower everybody to not only demand that their data. I mean, for me, right? I'm dedicated my life to this problem. I On my phone, I use a quantum safe VPN because that protects my transactions. I
Mm,
wish that,
that's fascinating.
yeah, everybody was.
Interesting. Now, if I were to take Rebecca into a time machine in 10 years from now, and then I asked her to tell me what it's like, how's her company going, and where are quantum computers at today? What do you what might she respond and tell me?
10 years.
Yeah.
Gosh, it's going to be such a cool 10 years. The DARPA has a competition going right now
Hmm.
where by early 2030 they're basically incentivizing and anticipating that a relatively powerful quantum computer will have been developed. And you brought up this term of quantum supremacy earlier, or
Mm-hmm.
quantum advantage. And it's this point in time where quantum computers start to solve problems that could not be solved in a reasonable amount of time on regular computers. And we're starting over the next couple of years, I really truly believe we'll start to see quantum computers begin to solve those problems that we just can't dream of on regular computers. And not just ones that are kind of esoteric, like uh, uh, was it boson sampling or um,
Right. Something
like
where like
relevant.
there's five people who understand even what you're talking about, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be stuff like route optimization for or portfolio optimization for how you allocate your stocks or things that are relevant to your life. And so once you hear about those, that's an inflection point moment. And
Mm.
so
And
I
if
think
you're
that's
not
my message for
prepared,
everybody when you
yeah, and if you're not prepared, it's probably too late for some of the big players once that happens, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a handful of startups in the quantum computing space that are really coming up. PsiQuantum just got $1 billion of investment. Quantinuum, a quantum computing company, just raised on a $10 billion valuation this week, and they have really aggressive roadmaps for before 2030 when they're going to reach a place where their computers are supposed to be very, very useful. So that's what I tell people to look out for. When you
Sure.
see quantum computers solving a problem that you recognize that is relevant to you, that's a big deal, and you should probably at that point start investing in the quantum
Mm.
stocks.
Rebecca, it's we're totally over time, but I feel like I can talk to you forever. I absolutely love what you do, and I, 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 I'm so excited to see where you'll be in 5 to 10 years from now. Or I'm definitely going to keep tabs, and if people want to keep tabs with you, how would they stay in touch? What's your social media? What do you?
Reach out to me. My email is my name at QSecure.com. Find me on all the platforms. And I forgot to mention, in 10 years, my company will have done its job, so there will have never been a crisis of data leakage due to quantum computers.
There is
So
a
that's
multiverse where that happens. So,
amazing. Love it. Well, yeah, reach out to me. Hit me up if you're interested in getting into this space as well. Check out QForce, and we're with the group that's in the Global Futures Council for the World Economic Forum. We're producing a Netflix documentary on quantum
mm,
computing, and the goal is to make it accessible to everybody. So that's the challenge, is to explain everything quantum, where we're at in quantum development, and where we're looking ahead to. What's the next 10 years probably going to look like,
yeah, I
in
should
a
probably
very
jump on
accessible.
quantum programming. That sounds like that's going to be a thing.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. All right, Rebecca. Till next time. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thanks so much, Michael.